Good afternoon. I want to thank everybody who joins us. Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform continues its operation today. My name is Kola Atamanova. It's been 9 years that the war is on, and today's day 372 of the full-scale invasion of the Russian aggressor in our homeland. And I traditionally want to thank the representatives of all the mass media who tell the world the truth about our heroic fight for freedom. We will have an interesting conversation right now. It's concerning our children, and I want to introduce our speaker. It's Yaroslav Shanko, Deputy Head of the Juvenile Prevention of the Directorate of National Police of Ukraine. Good afternoon, Mr. Yaroslav. Mr. Yaroslav, lately, within the last couple of days or maybe weeks, everybody was hearing about some new movement, Redan. Maybe it's new to us, maybe it had emerged not just now, but what do we know about it, how popular it is in Ukraine, and what are the problems that police faces right now? Yes, I want to say that in the end of February this year, the National Police identified the activity of a new youth movement on the network, which is aimed at the provoking of mass clashes and fights. The police started investigating the information, which the investigation involved the local police services and the cyber police. We identified that in the newly created Telegram channels and on social networks, the administrators spread information and provoked the youth for physical clashes and mass gatherings. And the investigation showed that the artificial creation of such clashes is the attempt of Russia's aggressor state is a psychological operation of Russian state, which is aimed at provoking fights in Ukraine, which involve youth. And another incident that happened in the capital of the aggressor country recently in February resulted in death of 2 minors. Right after that, the special services of Russian Federation used such model of provoking of destabilization in Ukraine, and they are being supported by administrators of such Telegram channels, which call for mass gatherings and physical fights to intentionally involve children in their criminal activities. Well, talking about this week, the National Police documented more than 40 such gatherings of the youth. However, the police reacted promptly to all such events and impeded all the clashes and fights between the groups of the youth. Such countermeasures involved more than 2,500 policemen. More than 1,000 persons were invited to the local departments of police, mostly the minors. They were communicated, and there were conversations with them and with their parents, which explained the standards for criminal and administrative liability. And the policemen blocked more than 100 of such Telegram channels and groups. They identified more than 45 administrators of such Telegram channels, which were created to evolve this youth movement and destabilize the situation in our country. Currently, the cyber police, in cooperation with other units of national police, tries to identify the sources of funding of such Telegram channels and the organizers of such events, along with administrators. I would like to clarify some details. Is it correct? Do we understand it correctly that there were no fights or clashes in Ukraine? Yes, I want to emphasize it once again that thanks to the prompt reaction and coordinated actions of the national police, all such circumstances were prevented. Every event of such mass gatherings was properly reacted by the police, and we prevented any such tragic consequences. Well, Mr. Yaroslav, I'm sure that all of our kids are wonderful, clever, and they are educated on the values of freedom, and they try to demonstrate it probably in such a radical way even. So that said, what are the reasons to gather hundreds of kids with some incomprehensible cause? Well, I think that our children are more clever than that. I think that maybe there is some problem that united them in this organization. Yes, you are right, as I mentioned before, and I want to emphasize it once again. This is the model, the contemplated model of mass gatherings for the destabilization of situation in our country on part of the Russian propagandists. They use our children with the purpose of getting them involved in these Telegram channels, and with the help of administrators they try to get them together and to provoke them for some radical actions. When we communicated with the children and administrators themselves, so they explained that they were part of those groups only out of banal interest. It was interesting for them what's gonna be next and what about it generally. The administrators explained that they were creating those Telegram channels because it's talking in youth slang, it's a hype, and for maybe further on making some profit on those Telegram channels. Dear colleagues, if you have any questions on the floor, please go ahead. Good afternoon, Olena Shepkova, Ukrinform. Could you please tell us if you have any details as to the regional breakdown? What are the regions where the adherents of this subculture are most active? And another question is, I would like to ask you if you have some advice for the parents and for the kids if their kids is the member of such subculture. As I mentioned, there were more than 40 such situations in our country across 17 regions of Ukraine. As to the membership in this subculture, I would say that it's a very small number. As I mentioned, they do it mostly out of interest, out of curiosity about what's going on around this, around all this situation evolving at this moment. As to the parents, it's a very correct and actual question. Us as a juvenile police, we work with pedagogical teams and administrations of the educational institutions in order to explain all those circumstances and to prevent the enemy from logically ending all their intentions or their psychological operations, so that they don't result in any negative consequences for our country and for our children. But first of all, we want to address the parents so they pay more attention to their children, so that they're friends with their kids, so that they have more interest about how their kids spend their free time, because the main thing is the attention to their kids. Do we have any other subcultures, some other popular subcultures active in Ukraine now? Well, there are always some subcultures in the youth environment, and the Ukrainian legislation does not directly prohibit any participation in such subcultures, but we are all interested in just non-infringement, non-violation of the law by representatives of any such subcultures. But there were no criminal actions on their side, on their part, so which shows that this subculture was artificially developed. Dear friends, do we have any more questions on the floor? Well, if there are no more questions, thank you very much for this conversation, for joining our broadcast. Joining us was Yaroslav Shanko, the Deputy Head of Juvenile Prevention of the National Police of Ukraine. So we're preparing a schedule for tomorrow. So bear with us, trust in our armed forces, and glory to Ukraine.